hushed murmurs threading through Reddit branded the palace cursed. A spectral chant that burrowed deep into the recesses of my mind, igniting an insatiable compulsion to probe the veracity of the tales myself. The evening unfurled its velvet cloak as I stood before the theater's Art Deco facade, its once proud arches and geometric flourishes now weathered by the relentless passage of time. The neon signs stuttering a sickly red glow across a desolate parking lot where my battered Ford Ranger slumped beside a rusted Buick. Undoubtedly Roy's, the manager's steadfast relic, its chipped paint a testament to years of neglect. The building loomed like a monolith of forgotten grandeur, its shadow stretching long and jagged over whispers of vanished employees, eerie noises reverberating through the midnight hours, and a persistent legend of a film dubbed Reel 13, said to materialize unbidden from the ether, a cursed artifact woven into the very bones of its lore. The air thickened as I drew closer, a palpable weight pressing against my chest like a hand from the grave, a shiver tracing the length of my spine despite the gentle warmth of the spring night, as if I were pushing through an invisible curtain laced with dread and the faint tang of decay. The glass doors groaned open under my hesitant touch, their hinges protesting with a sound like the sigh of a dying beast, releasing a stale breath of popcorn mingled with a musty undertone reminiscent of ancient books abandoned to a damp cellar, the scent clinging to the chipped gold tiles that lined the floor in intricate, labyrinthine patterns that seemed to writhe and shift beneath my prolonged gaze, as though harboring secrets etched by the footsteps of countless souls over decades. Weeks of scouring online forums had fueled this pilgrimage, the threads a rich tapestry of consistent accounts, disappearances shrouded in mystery, spectral footsteps echoing in the dark, watchers lurking beyond the veil of reality, stirring a wonder that propelled me to seek this night shift, a decision now reverberating in the cavernous silence that enveloped me like a shroud. A gruff voice shattered the stillness, calling my name, Ethan Ramsey, and Roy emerged from the shadows near the concession stand, a stocky figure with thinning gray hair streaked with silver and deep-set eyes that bore the weight of horrors witnessed over countless nights, their depths reflecting a weariness that transcended mere exhaustion. His faded palace uniform, the red vest faded to a muted burgundy under the stuttering fluorescence, hung loosely on his frame, as if drained by the building's insatiable appetite, the fabric sagging at the shoulders like the skin of an aged hound. A faint creak emanated from the upper floors, a sound like someone pacing in the dark, threading unease through the air with the rhythm of a heartbeat, a reminder of the unseen presence that lingered. I offered a tentative "yes, sir," extending a hand that he dismissed with a curt gesture, thrusting a laminated card toward me instead, its edges worn smooth by handling. "Rules," he intoned, his voice a gravelly command that carried the weight of authority and dread. I accepted the card, my fingers brushing its cracked surface as I scanned the handwritten text, a litany of directives that quickened my pulse with their eerie familiarity to the Reddit tales I devoured, each word a thread connecting the digital whispers to this tangible nightmare. His gaze lingered, assessing, a storm brewing behind those shadowed eyes, as I absorbed the weight of his words, a warning implicit in the silence that followed, a silence that pulsed with the theater's latent energy. "Something funny?" he asked, noting the flicker of recognition that danced across my features, a twitch of the lip betraying my thoughts. "No," I replied, tucking the card into my pocket with a motion that felt too deliberate. "Just reminds me of stories I've read online about this place." His eyes narrowed, a storm cloud gathering, the lines around them deepening. "Those threads, huh? You one of those ghost hunters? Film school dropout?" I confessed, a sheepish grin tugging at the corners of my mouth, a confession laced with the sting of abandoned dreams. "Just interested in folklore." "Folklore?" he echoed, the word hanging between us like a portent, heavy with unspoken threat, its syllables rolling off his tongue with the weight of a curse. "Stick to these rules, Ethan. Things crawl here after dark. Cursed films, shadows, worse. Don't play hero." He pressed a ring of keys into my hand, each labeled with faded tape that peeled at the edges, the metal cold against my palm, and gestured toward a back room shrouded in shadow. "Employee lockers in there. The late show concludes when the clock strikes its final note. Secure the premises an hour later. Inspect all theaters. Cleanse what requires it." The morning shift arrives with the dawn. I've an errand to attend, but I'll return later. Don't test the rules. They're the only tether holding this place's quiet. Got it? I nodded, the word a hollow promise. But as he paused at the exit, his voice dropped to a whisper that carried the chill of a crypt. The rules aren't suggestions. The door swung shut with a hollow thud that echoed through the lobby, leaving me alone, the silence pressing against my ears like a living entity. Its breath a subtle hum in the stillness, the gold tiles beneath my feet seeming to pulse with a rhythm I couldn't quite discern. I stowed my backpack in the employee locker, a cramped sanctum reeking of cigarettes and the sharp, astringent tang of lemon cleaner. The air thick with the residue of past occupants. Faint traces of tobacco smoke curling in the corners. The cleaner's citrus bite a futile attempt to mask the decay. The space was a claustrophobic cocoon, its metal walls dented and scrawled with graffiti from hands long gone, a testament to the turnover of souls who'd passed through. Grabbing a broom from the supply closet, its handle worn smooth by countless grips, I resolved to begin with the mundane. The lobby's silence, a weight that pressed against my eardrums like a physical force, a void that seemed to inhale sound. I swept popcorn from the floor, the bristles scraping against chipped gold tiles, each stroke unveiling patterns in the grime, whorls and lines that seemed deliberate, as if worn into the surface by decades of shuffling feet, a map of forgotten rituals etched in dust and despair. The air carried the cloying scent of stale butter and artificial flavoring, a synthetic sweetness that coated the tongue, but beneath it lingered a metallic tang, like old pennies left to oxidize in some forgotten corner, a hint of something ancient and unsettling, a whisper of blood long dried. I'd nearly completed my task, the pile of debris growing at my feet, when the front doors creaked open with a groan that reverberated through the bones, admitting a man, tall, gaunt, his right hand marred by a lattice of scars that crisscrossed like a roadmap of pain, his shadow stretching unnaturally across the floor, its edges curling like smoke-seeking crevices in the light. "Evening?" I called, propping the broom against the counter, my voice a tentative bridge across the void, a lifeline cast into the unknown. "The last shows have begun, but I can sell you a ticket if you don't mind missing the opening." He approached without a word, his boots scuffing the tiles with a sound like sandpaper, sliding a crisp 20 across the counter with fingers that trembled slightly. His eyes evading mine, sunken pools of shadow that refused to meet my gaze. "Which theater?" I asked, my fingers hovering over the antiquated ticketing system, its keys worn smooth by time, the mechanism clicking with a reluctance that mirrored my own hesitation. "Two," he rasped, his voice like gravel dragged over stone, a sound that grated against the silence. "Whatever's playing." I printed ticket 547 for Theater 2, an action flick limping through its final week, the paper crisp under my fingers as I handed him his change, his cold, waxy fingers brushing mine with a touch that sent a shiver up my arm, a sensation like touching the skin of a corpse preserved too long. "Enjoy the show?" I offered, a hollow courtesy that felt like a lie. He nodded, his shadow clinging to the walls as he moved toward Theater 2, a motion that defied the natural flow of light, as if tethered to some unseen force that pulled it askew. To steady my nerves, I turned to restocking the candy display, arranging chocolate bars and licorice in neat rows, the wrappers crinkling with a sound too loud in the empty lobby, a brittle echo against the stillness that seemed to amplify every movement. I found myself humming an old tune my mother once sang, its melody a fragile shield against the growing unease, the notes drifting like ghosts through the air. "Hush, little baby, don't say a word," a lullaby from a time when safety was a given. When the hour grew late, I ventured into Theater 1 to check the seating, the doors swinging open with a silence that belied their weight, revealing rows of faded velvet seats bathed in the blue pallor of pre-show advertisements, the screen a beacon in the gloom. My footsteps echoed with a hollow resonance, a sound that bounced off the walls and returned to me altered, as I collected stray popcorn bags, the task a grounding ritual that anchored me to the present. But a faint patter of steps from the balcony above froze me in place, a sound that defied the emptiness, a rhythm that suggested intent rather than accident. I gripped my flashlight tighter, its beam a frail defense, recalling the directive to ignore them, focusing on the velvet seats, the air growing colder with each breath, my exhalation fogging despite the season's warmth, a phenomenon that defied the thermostat's steady hum. A cracked mirror on the back wall caught my reflection, pale, drawn, as if I'd aged days and hours, the lines of my face etched deeper by the dim light, and for a fleeting moment, a darker shadow moved behind it, a silhouette within the glass that shifted like smoke before vanishing when I turned, leaving only the echo of its presence. The footsteps ceased, the silence deepening into a weight that pressed against my chest, expectant, as if the theater held its breath, waiting for my next move. The lobby doors parted again as I emerged, a woman in a gray coat standing at the counter, her face half obscured by a scarf that hung like a shroud, her posture unnaturally still, as if she drew no breath, a statue carved from the night. "Can I help you?" I asked, stepping behind the counter, my voice a tentative probe into the unknown, a thread cast into the abyss. "One ticket," she replied, her voice soft yet clear, cutting through the hum of the space with a precision that chilled. "Any show?" I nodded, tapping at the computer, its keys clacking with a reluctance that mirrored my dread, the system assigning her ticket 032. My stomach plummeted, a visceral recoil that tightened my throat. "Sorry?" I forced a smile, the expression a mask over my panic. "Printer error. Let me issue a different one." "I want that one." She leaned forward, her pale eyes luminous under the fluorescent glare, a glow that seemed to pulse with an inner light. "I can't sell 032, I said, clinging to the manager's instruction like a lifeline. "System error. Full refund plus free tickets tomorrow." "I don't want a refund." Her voice hardened, a steel edge beneath the silk that sliced through my resolve. "I want 032. I slid a popcorn coupon across the counter, a desperate bribe. "Free popcorn for life?" Her eyes glowed, locking mine in a vice that paralyzed my limbs, freezing them as if bound by ice that seeped into my bones. She snatched the ticket, gliding past with a grace that defied gravity, her scarf trailing like smoke, a wraith departing into the shadows. I fumbled for my phone, its screen dark, the line dead, a low hum vibrating through the lobby, as if the theater stirred in anger at my failure, its walls trembling with a subtle rage. Shaken, I scrubbed a gray smear she'd left on the counter, the bleach searing my nostrils with a chemical bite, a creak echoing from the hallway like footsteps on old wood, a sound that chased me into the night. The hour deepened, her glowing eyes and my lapse haunting me. A shadow I couldn't outrun, a specter that lingered in the corners of my vision. The late show concluded, patrons trickling out like water from a breached dam, their footsteps a fading echo as I secured the front doors with a turn of the key, the lock clicking into place with a finality that sealed me within. I began my cleaning rounds with Theater 2, the air thick with the residue of an action flick's finale, popcorn crunching beneath my feet like brittle bones as I collected abandoned soda cups and candy wrappers, their crinkled edges a testament to hurried departures. The screen loomed dark, but the air thrummed with the sensation that something played just beyond my sight, a phantom reel visible only in the periphery, its images flickering in the corners of my eyes like a mirage. I worked methodically, the broom's bristles against the floor a soothing rhythm. Sweep, collect, dispose. A cadence that anchored me to the task, until a gray scarf draped over a back row seat stopped me cold. Its edges frayed as if kissed by flame, the fabric singed with a pattern that suggested more than mere wear, twisting my stomach with recognition. Hers. The theater seemed to hold its breath, the silence a living thing that watched my every move. Theater 1 loomed next, its silence artificial, the pre-show advertisements replaced by a blank screen that reflected the emergency light's faint red glow, turning the faded velvet seats into pools of shadow that seemed to shift with each step. I ascended to the projection booth, the narrow stairs creaking under my weight, and lit the candle Roy had mentioned, its white wax catching flame with a sputter, casting dancing shadows across the peeling wallpaper, a ward against the watchers that felt more ritual than practical. The flame's dance was a fragile beacon, its light a thin veil against the dark, though no screenings remained to justify the act. 12 reels lined the shelf, their labels faded to illegibility, the tape curling at the edges, no real 13 among them. A relief that washed over me like a cool wave, undercut by a pang of disappointment. My curiosity a restless beast that yearned to confront the legend. The bathrooms needed mopping, their tiles slick with the residue of the day, the theater's creaks a breath-like cadence that accompanied me. A companion in the growing dark, each sound a note in a symphony of unease. By the midnight hour, the lobby gleamed under the harsh glare of fluorescent lights, the concession stand spotless, its glass surfaces reflecting my haggard face. But unease crawled up my spine like a serpent uncoiling, its scales brushing against my nerves. The candle burned steady in the booth, its warmth a fragile sanctuary that drew me back, the air within its confines warmer than the rest of the theater. A refuge that pulsed with a strange vitality. Reddit threads whispered of watchers, entities feeding on fear and fascination, their forms born from the spaces between frames. Roy's rules a lifeline I'd mostly heeded, a shield against the unknown. Yet my curiosity, that film school dropout's folly, drew me deeper, the night alive with the palace's secrets, each creak a note in its symphony, each shadow a player in its drama. A thud from theater one spurred me to investigate, the sound a heavy fall onto carpet, and I grabbed the mop from the supply closet, its handle a makeshift weapon clutched in trembling hands. The doors swinging open to reveal empty seats under a red glow that turned the space into a crimson womb. Halfway down the center aisle, footsteps thundered from the balcony, heavy and deliberate. A rhythm that suggested intent. A gray-coated figure materializing in the gloom, the woman with ticket 032. Watch with us? A whisper slithered from everywhere and nowhere. My name a chill blade that sliced through my resolve. A detail I'd shared only with Roy. A breach that tightened my throat. I mopped, ignoring her as the directive demanded. The air freezing until my breath clouded. The mop water icing over with thin sheets that crunched under my strokes. A phenomenon that defied the season's warmth. I'm just doing my job, I declared, my voice a steady anchor against the storm, finishing the aisle with hurried precision, retreating to the lobby where its relative warmth enveloped me like an embrace, a brief respite from the cold. Outside, I adjusted the marquee's flickering bulb, the metal ladder cold against my palms, the night air a clean contrast to the theater's stuffiness. Though the silence was absolute, no cars, no voices, not even the rustle of wind, as if the world beyond the palace had ceased to exist. The marquee's title shifted to the watchers, a pulse matching my heartbeat, and a 1927 clipping from a hidden ticket box revealed a fire, 17 trapped in the balcony. A note scrawled in faded ink. They never left. A second reflection in the popcorn machine's glass vanished when I turned. The theater feeding on my fear, its hunger a palpable force. At an ungodly hour, Reel 13 appeared in the booth, its canister vibrating, drawn by my lingering gaze, and I locked the door, retreating as the lobby's lights flickered, candy rearranged in patterns I didn't recognize. Roy returned, his eyes hollow, revealing the palace as a feeder, the watchers ravenous, shadows swarming as he was taken. His relief a chilling farewell. I poured a salt circle, chanting, "By light and will you fade," banishing them as Reel 13 disintegrated into dust. As dawn approached, the morning shift arrived, the palace ordinary again, and I fled, the whisper you're free lingering, a scar etched into my soul. Could you withstand the palace's gaze? Reader, would you dare uncover its secrets?